I'm Dr. Alvin Thomas. My work and this show is dedicated to educating, validating, elevating, and celebrating the importance of Black fatherhood. This is the Black Fatherhood Podcast. From his childhood on the streets in Uganda to his life as an adoptive father and foster father, our next guest has an extraordinary personal story that weaves together countries, continents, social strata, and family at every possible level. Peter Mutabazi is an entrepreneur and international advocate for children and the founder of Now I Am Known, a corporation that supplies resources and encourages and affirms children. A single father, he is a former street kid who has worked for World Vision, Compassion International, and the Red Cross, and has appeared on media outlets such as BBC and The Today Show. Welcome, Peter.
Well, thank you for having me here. Truly a joy to be with you today.
I look forward to a really rousing conversation. So just from the introduction, it's obvious that you have this very incredible personal story, a journey that has taken you from being a street kid in Uganda to a university classroom to becoming a foster and adoptive father of 37, an adoptive father of 3. Can you share the origins of your story? Start at the beginning for us.
Well, absolutely. I would love, sometimes people, when they say you must have superpowers, and I'm like, well, my superpowers are from somewhere. And that's kind of where the somewhere is. Grew up in Uganda where poverty is all I knew. I was born among the poor of the poorest. I didn't have a name until when I was 2 years old. Why? Because for every 100 children who were born in my village, 60 would die before the age of 2. So most moms didn't name their kids until they were sure they would make it. So that meant they could never afford school fees. They could never afford food for a day. I mean, I had a meal one every other day. We could not afford beans and potatoes. We could only have one. So for me, from the get-go, poverty and lack of hope is all I knew. How can a mother tell you to dream if they can't feed you for the night? I went to fetch water 3 miles away. I went to the garden to help my mom. So from the age of 2, 3, 4, you're beginning to really contribute to the family's needs. And so for me, I didn't see any hope, and it wasn't just me, but everyone around is poor. So it's hard to imagine a better life when everyone around you is just the same as you. At the age of 4, I began to realize hey, wait a minute, my father is different from other fathers, and I noticed that he was just abusive in every shape, form you could imagine, towards me and towards my mom as well. So as a kid, you have one mother that loves you but cannot protect you. Or the guilty of every time she got abused was because she was really advocating for you. Mom would say, hey, kids haven't eaten for days. Would you provide for them food? And she would get the beatings for that. So as a kid, you knew your needs puts your mom in danger. But at the same time, that you couldn't run away from poverty on one side and from your father. So for me, I never wanted to see the next day. Until when I was 10 years old, I think I knew my father would kill me. So I was like, hey, if he's going to kill me, why should I give him the opportunity to do so? So I went to the bus station. I had never been 20 miles away from my village. And I asked the lady, hey, of all these buses, which one goes the farthest, And the lady pointed to the bus, and I got on that bus, and I never been 20 miles away. I went 500 kilometers away, ended up in Kampala, and became a street kid. And running away wasn't like I was looking for a future. It was more of, look, I'd rather die, but die in the hands of a stranger. That was the reason why I ran away. Of course, I survived. I became a street kid for 5 years. And now, of course, that became my life. And as a street kid, life was 100 times worse than what was at home. But there was a difference. I was being abused by strangers who did not know me. So in some way, they had a right to do whatever they wanted. And that became my life for almost 6 years. Until one day, I was trying to steal from a stranger. And this stranger, instead of, kind of seeing me as a garbage boy, but he just rather said, hey, what's your name? And he got to know me, and he fed me for 1 year and a half. And one day he said, hey, Peter, if you had an opportunity to go to school, would you love to go to school? And I'm like, look, no, why would I go to school? I'm a garbage boy. I live under the sewer. Why the sewer? Because it smelled so bad that no any other human beings could go there. So for us, that was a safe place to be. So here you have a man saying, "Would you like to go to the to school?" You're like, "Why? I'm garbage." These are things I had from my father from day one. You garbage, you never amount to anything. There's nothing about you. I wish you were never born, so I did not have to feed you. That's what you had when you went to bed. That's what you had when you woke up. So for me, school wasn't anything I could long for. I thought school, you have to be, you have to have mom and dad. You have to live in a home. I was a street kid. So for me, I thought he was mocking me in a way. But then he changed his language. Next time he said, "Hey, if you go to school, there'll be lunch, dinner, and breakfast." I was like, "Wait, what? Sure, for food, I'll go." And that's how I went to school. In some way, he truly changed my life. Not only did I go high school, I went to university in Uganda, I went to university in England, and that's how I came to United States through the kindness of a stranger who I was trying to steal from him. That he saw the best in me, even the things I didn't know I could do. That he saw opportunity in me and said, "Hey, I'm gonna help this kid," and that kid happened to be me.
So as you think back, because I hear all of these sore points, points that are threaded through with trauma and suffering and disillusionment and distance and dehumanization. And you can think of all of the other potential adjectives and verbs that would describe the experience. And I hear it starting with your dad and then moving beyond. As you think about that young Peter and your dad at that time and Peter today and your dad today, do you see a difference in your dad? How do you think of your dad? How do you see your dad?
I think for me, I really dealt with hatred towards my father, especially how he treated my mom. So for me, all my life, I think until the age of 21, I wanted to go home and harm him in some way, like, payback time. That was my whole, because he was a horrible man. But I think one time, during the genocide in Rwanda, I was rescuing kids, and I saw more than 3,000 dead bodies that day. And I knew I'm going to die. Like, there's no way you can see all that and survive. So in my head, I thought, wait, how could human beings be mean to each other this way? Like, how could humanity turn on each other this way? But as I was saying that, I realized, like, wait a minute, but that's what I want to do my father. Like, I hated him so much that I wanted to harm him. And so that really changed my view of life. Like, wait, if I keep on this hatred, if I keep holding this towards my father, I'll end up being the same. But also I knew in some way that if I keep hold on the hatred, he's gonna win in some way, that he's gonna ruin my future by dragging my past into what I could be. And that's why I turned around. I said, you know what? I want to forgive this man. Either he says it's okay or he doesn't. But on my side of the world, I truly want to let it go and forgive him no matter what. And that's what I did. And that really helped me in some way to see him as a human being. Like, wait a minute, he's my father. He's the one God chose for me. So I'm gonna take him as who he is. But I'm gonna put boundaries on how far he can affect me as I move forward, but also as I get to love him as a human being. I'm the oldest of five, so my siblings were still at home. That I knew I love my mom and I love my siblings. And having that hatred wouldn't really help me in some way, helping them as well. So I had to let go. And now we have a better relationship, not a dad-father relationship. No, I think this man became my dad, that I wasn't looking for another dad, that I just wanted to be a fellow citizen, a fellow human being that can extend a hand towards my father, no matter who he was or who he is to this day. And so, yeah, we are on a better relationship than before.
Do you have any continued connection with this good Samaritan who pretty much helped save your life?
Yes. So once he put me in the boarding school, so he brought me to his home, and he introduced me to his family. And I think that's when all the spark went, kind of like, wait a minute. Men can be kind to their wives. Men can be kind to their kids, because I didn't have an example of that. As a street kid, the harshest people were men. In my family, the harshest people were men. So in some way, I knew I ought to be the same as them, But for the first time, he really showed me what a father ought to be. Kind, tender, that speaks, wisdom and kindness to his kids, that really that spark of that, oh, wait a minute, I want to be like this man, because all the examples I had weren't good. I was like, I just want to be like this man. And of course, he let me live with them for most of my life. So actually, most people think he's my biological dad, but really, no, because he really, not only did he put me in school, but he brought me in his family. And that really changed my life forever. They use words of affirmation that I had never had before. Peter, you matter. Peter, you're enough. Peter, you're a gift to us. I'm like, really? How can I be a gift to you? He would say, Peter, you're brave. And I'm like, what does that mean, brave? He would say, look, you've lived on the streets for almost 6 years. I could not survive for one day. So for you to live that far and that long, you're the bravest kid I've ever met. And so he began to see my negative and turn it to positive. And that really changed my life on how I viewed, things that happened to me. I began to see them more of, wait a minute. Yes, my past is ugly, but I can actually use it as a foundation to help myself and help others. And that really, really changed the way I view the world.
To borrow from Charles Dickens, you're telling us this tale of two fathers. I think of, so again, to borrow from your own language, a garbage kid. One father crushes like one would crush an empty aluminum can, a soda can, and destroys. And another father steps in and helps to pull out the potential from that aluminum can and straightens out. The scars are still present, but straightens out and allows that aluminum can, allows this street kid, this throwaway kid, to find himself and to connect to love, to connect to family, to connect to purpose. Thank you so much for sharing this story with us. You write that before you can be known by others, you have to leave places, patterns, and ideas that lie about and value who you are. My hope is that you will find the power within yourself to take that first brave step. Tell us about that first brave step that you took towards personal freedom as a child in Uganda.
Well, for me, it began at an age of, I think I was 9 or 10. My father had beat me so badly, and I was so mad and sulking the whole day. And as I was passing by the bar where he was drinking, he was laughing and playing board games with his friends. And I was like, wait a minute. So I've been sulking the whole day, But this man, it really didn't bother him. He hasn't, I think as a kid, I thought he's as mad as I was. And realizing that, wait a minute, no, And from there, I came back and told my siblings, I say, you know what? We can learn how to truly turn the abuse of our father to a laughing stock, So we would find ways on how we can say, hey, I'm going to borrow your clothes. So while he's beating me, we'll count hours, we'll count minutes until I cry, So we found ways of how to make the misery into fun in summer. So that was my first step, And as a street kid as well, we would be used in every shape, form you could imagine abuse. That I learned how to say, I'm going to separate between my physical and my mental, And I learned how to say, you can abuse me sexually this way, but in my mental, I'm going to not go there, And that really helped me to differentiate between where I wanted to go and how far I wanted to let someone in, And once also this family took me in, they believed in me. So every minute I believed in what they said, they said, you matter, really? How do I matter, And those small steps began to really help me do better for myself. For example, I wanted to beat up someone at school. If you looked into my eyes, that meant you want to fight, But then I realized, like, wait a minute, they said I matter, so I don't really have to be this kid, because as a kid, that's what I knew how to survive, but I would gather things and put them aside. And before I could steal them, and I'll be like, wait a minute, he said I'm a gift. How am I a gift if I'm going to take away, And then I would put them back because he said I was a gift to his family to remind him of how far we can go, but also the goodness in others. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take that. So those words I had, I think, really helped me to take the next step, Not, I never had a pair of shoes until when I was 16. So now I wasn't wearing it, but now I was like, wait a minute, if he believes I can be in school, I should wear the shoe as much as others are. And those little small steps, one at a time, really helped me to get to a place where it really changed my entire life in some way. And that's really for me what helped me. It wasn't just, one step that turned it, but it's small little increments that really helped me to get where I wanted to be.
I'm sure you're gonna touch on this in a little bit, and thank you very much for sharing this. But often I think when people are fostering children or adopting children, they assume that, well, I've adopted them, I've brought them into my home, and I'm showing them love. Everything should suddenly change, and they should be perfect children right now. Not that our own children are perfect, but they should be perfect children now, and they should be like angels. All of the trauma and challenges that they went through and the behaviors that they had to learn to cope with the trauma that they were going through should just disappear. So, for example, something as simple as stealing food from the cupboard to hide under their sheets and under their bed because they've learned that they don't know when the next meal is going to come. So you always have to hoard food. And even when you're living in a stable home, you might continue that food hoarding behavior or that excessive eating. I heard as you were telling this story, all of these telltale signs of trauma and of resilience and functioning and coping with trauma. I heard the compartmentalization, deciding I was going to separate my feelings from my body. So when this is happening, this is just my body, but me, I remain untouched by this. You mentioned James as the man who has deeply influenced you, and how James became a father figure in a sense for you while you were at school. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with James and how it changed your own outlook and interest in becoming a father yourself.
As you said about trauma, we travel, we hang on our trauma in some way. And I had a lot of that, and I remember one day when they invited me to go eat at their place. For me, I served my food and I sat at the exit door because I knew every man beats their kids. So for me, I was like, no, while he's beating his kids, I'm going to find my way out. And I did it more than 3 times. And the 4th time, they put a name on. I put my name on one of the chairs on the dining table, and that really changed my life because they said, "Hey, like we know you're afraid. We know you don't trust us. But hey, on this dining table, there's a chair and it has your name on it." And that really began to help me understand. Like, wait a minute, I'm not just. They're not up to abuse me. They're not up to do anything. That they really truly care. And that really helped me to see who he was in some way. That I began to believe in that this man really wants the best for me. In a way, he never told me, "Hey, go do things." He just always did, and I followed. If he went to wash dishes, I would follow. Like, wow, I love what he's doing, and he never said, "Peter, you got to do this to get here." No. And for me, that really changed the way he saw me. I stole. So one night I stayed at their home. And I don't know, I stole something. And he went, instead of accusing me, but he went back and got 3 more of what I'd stolen. He said, "Hey, by the way, I know you took 1, but I would like to add more." And I'm like, wait, okay.
Right.
You're killing me right now, That he always saw the best in me, even when I wanted to truly give up, or even if I was going back to my routine of trauma, that he really always saw the best. He loved me at my lowest, and that really what changed for me, because he saw potential where I didn't see myself. He encouraged me to see potential where nobody had ever done that before, and for me that really helped me. He used the life of Joseph. I don't know if you guys know the life of Joseph, but he always said, "What did Joseph do when his brothers found him?" He said, "Hey, for what you meant for evil, God used it for good to save a life." And that for me helped me like, wait, what? But in other words, embrace where you come from and use it as a foundation to do better. That's what I heard from him. Like, hey, you can cry all day, but we cannot change the past. But you can change your future by really how you attach or you deal with your past now. And that changed my life forever. I mean, from having an F to D to now extending to A, because I believed in him, uh, uh, of what he did. He did one thing that to this day I still remember. In Africa, most people don't have cars, so it's usually the man that drives, and the wife sits in the next seat, and their kids in the middle, and everyone else in the back. And this time, his wife wasn't there, and he said, "Peter, sit there." And I'm like, "No, I'm not worthy sitting in that seat. That's for your wife." And he looked in my eyes. To this day, I can remember what I was wearing and how he said, "Peter, you have a potential, and you are you're my son, and I love you that much." And you're worthy sitting there. And for me, that flipped the coin, to this day, that I was worthy sitting in the wife's seat. And that changed my life on how I view the world, but also how I excelled in school, but also how he used his, everyday simple things that truly helped me change the narrative of my trauma. And that's for me how I do for my kids. I think that's why it's easy for me to be a foster parent, because I'm able to see the red flags of where they're coming from, and not see them as a negative, but see them as a positive and say, I know, yes, you're hoarding food as you said, but how do I help so you don't have to worry about, the food is going to go where? We write names on a pint of milk, everyone's name, so they know, hey, okay, on this pint of milk, there's a part of me that is there because my name is on it. So then they don't have to worry about, okay, who's going to drink the milk first? No, it has everyone's name. So meaning we all have a portion of that. But learning it from my own experience, and that really changed my life. And I like what you said, one man put me down, the other man helped me to go up, and that really helped me in some way even out through the kindness of another father.
It's amazing the things we take for granted. I would not think twice as a child to go into the fridge and grab something to drink. But as a child who's been told that you are trash, that you are nothing, that you don't belong, that you'll never amount to anything, something as simple as feeling worthy of taking water out of the fridge, that water is also meant for you, that you are worthy of that water. I think we take that for granted, and I think for foster kids, for kids who might have had traumatic experiences, foster kids, foster parents, and other parents in general want to be that deliberate in validating their children, and not just for foster kids, but for children in general, just being very deliberate in validating our children. So tell me a little bit about you wrote in your book, becoming a foster or adoptive dad is a lot harder than becoming a biological father. I don't understand that. Help me understand that.
Well, so think about, they brought this child to you. You had no clue where they come from. You have zero information about them. But somehow you're not forced, but hey, you're encouraged. You signed up for this, so you got to be a father, a full time, not half, not an inch. You have to be fully a dad. To me, I feel like that is hardest, to love someone that you don't share the DNA, the behaviors they have, you had nothing to do with it. You didn't. We raise kids, we guide them along the way, and when we fail, we blame ourselves. Yep, I told my kid that way, or I didn't do that. But for us adoptive parents and foster parents, you're giving a child, with every trauma you could think of, and they say, hey, today, the child is arriving, and 20 minutes later, you are full-time dad. Wow, okay. I think that's what I meant. Like, it's literally you had to figure out this child. Where do they eat? What they don't like? What sparks them? What trauma do they have? And most of them, they don't tell you. They don't tell you, hey, this is what I had to endure. No, you learn it along the way. They give you pieces and pieces. So you live a life of, you're not a spy, you're not a police, you're not the FBI about the child, but you do all to piece things together to find out who is my child, and to love unconditionally. I can tell you, sometimes when they're putting holes in my house, to stand up there and say, hey, I want to hear my child. He's talking in a way that I don't understand or don't like. He's calling me names that I would never call anyone, but it's not about me, Peter. It's not about, to know that, hey, this is about my kid, that I can step aside my
Mm-hmm.
own feelings and step aside and listen to my kid and say, yeah, I know how you're feeling, and I validate every way you can. And so you can see that parenting from from 0 to 100 with no
Right.
instructions about this child is really difficult. And I think that's what I meant. You can't blame your not learning scale. They come when they're 3, they're different. They turn 12, they're a different child. Now the trauma is showing up in a different way. So you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly learning on how best you can be there for this child. That is nonstop. That can be really difficult.
So you're describing this very tumultuous process that you choose to put yourself through, that you choose to take up as a thing that you want to do, as a mission that you want to engage. What motivates you to continue to work with at-risk kids? Why wouldn't you just ask for kids who didn't have any trauma history or any major risks?
Right, or not do it at all.
Yeah, that too.
Every child who comes in foster care, 99.9999, all of them all have trauma. Anyone who's been separated by the parents has trauma for sure. I think for me, it was learning from my own self, that a stranger could love me. Literally, I was a thief, dirty. Like, name any worst king you could think, that was me. But somehow he saw the best in me. And I think for me to move forward, to know if I can do it, I ought to have the same faith, the same belief in the kids in foster care that have trauma. That I can looking through my own self, that I can truly be there for these kids. And not just these kids, and their parents as well. It's amazing when you come alongside a parent and say, hey, I want you to have your kid back. And I'm going to do everything possible to truly show you how. And for me, that has really been, an amazing journey, that I'm not just the only one, but I'm coming alongside a set of other parents who have failed, that I can come alongside and say, hey, I'm here to help you. I don't want to take your child, but I want to show you what a father truly ought to be, because someone showed me the same. But 2, I was there's nothing my kids haven't done that I didn't do, So in some way, mirroring my own childhood and to see how I overcame that, and to see how I help another kid as well. But 2, it's an amazing opportunity to be given an office of a dad. I've had 36 kids, 37, but none of them has said, hey, I wish we had a mom. No, they all said, we just want a dad, because none of them had ever had a dad in some way. So for me, in some way, to stand up and say, for these fatherless kids, I want to maybe show them what a father ought to be. They've never seen one. How can I act so one day they will be the best dad they can be, because that's what someone did for me. I knew every man beats their wives. I knew every man can be harsh and mean in every way, shape, because that's what I saw at home, on the streets, until this man came in. And I think for me, the same to our kids in foster care. 70% of our kids in juvenile were foster kids. Kids who are trafficked, 70% were former foster kids, because none of us who had a better understanding on how to be there for them has shown up for them. And so they've fallen into trap. And I think that's what I wanted to show, that truly we can be good dads, because someone showed me, and if I can show to my kids, that would be worth it. So it's hard, but worth everything.
I love how James changed the narrative of fatherhood for you. And you're now changing the narrative around fatherhood for a number of foster kids. You write that every single day I make sure to tell my children, or to let my children hear me say to them these words that I hope they will never forget. You matter, you belong, you are loved, you are seen, you are chosen, you are a gift, you are not alone, you are enough, you are heard, you are brave, you are special, you are known. When you say these things to your children, how do they respond?
For me, those are 12 words that I memorized. They said for me that I never had before. So I made sure that I put them on my steering wheel, on my kitchen, on the fridge, and in my closet, because if I want to give up, I go to the closet and then I read them. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come back, But also our dog Simba wears the bandana with those words. That most of our foster kids, or at least my kids, those are the words they are longing for, to feel they matter. They've moved from home to home, and you never feel you belong. They move them. No one ever asks, hey, we're moving you to another home. No, they just show up there. And I wanted them to know those words the same way I had them the first time. You are known. You are seen. You're a gift to me. You're not a by the way. No, I went to school. I learned how to be a foster parent so I can be your dad. That meant I was chosen. That meant you're chosen. That meant you're not a by the way. And for me, those have helped my kids. It's fun when I hear them talk about each other. When someone does something, they're like, you belong. You're special. And I'm like, okay, these words are awesome working, because I can hear them say them to each other or to their friends. So it's been wonderful to learn those.
So, in closing, I want to post something that you have in your acknowledgement section of your memoir. In your memoir, in the acknowledgement section, you thank your father. And you write, "To my father, who helped me understand the depth of grace and mercy." Tell us more about that.
Empathy, that's something I've learned, empathy and forgiving as well, like to forgive one another and to forgive others as well. That my father has helped me be who I am. Yes, I would never wish for any child to go through what I went through, but at the same time, I won't wish to change my past, that I feel that it really helped me be who I am now, to have empathy and have love and care for others and be a good dad. That I don't think, had I not had my childhood, I don't think I would have been this way, So in some way, to give gratitude that somehow, yes, as Joseph said, what you meant for evil, God used it for good. In some way, for me to say the same way, that wasn't nice, but despite of that, it really changed me to be a better human being, and that's why I truly love him, and I wanted to credit him for that.
Thank you very much, Peter, for sharing your story with us. I am sure that many lives have already been touched, both by your story and by your magnanimity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alvin, for making us seen, heard, and known. We appreciate you so much.
We want to thank Peter Mutabazi for sharing with us today his story and his life, his trauma, and his resilience. As parents, we want to be careful what we speak to our children, what we say to our children, and sometimes what we communicate to them without words. Very easily, we could communicate to them that they are garbage, that they are nothing, that they are not necessary, not important, an accident, an afterthought. Even while we say that we love them, we might be communicating something very different. And though your child may not be a street child, as Peter experienced, but the abuse that you might hurl at your child, the neglect that you might hurl at your child or at the parent of your child, can be internalized, will be internalized by your child. And so today I encourage every father listening, go find your child, hug them, cuddle with them, and as you cuddle them today and every day going forward, say these things to them. You can select a few, those that you remember easily, or write them all down. And as you brush your son's hair, as you help him brush his teeth, as you comb your daughter's hair, as you help her put her socks on, as you cuddle and put them to bed, say this to your child. You matter. You belong. You are loved. You are seen. You are chosen. You are a gift, and you are not alone. You are enough. You are heard and you are brave. You are special. You are known because you are mine, my beloved. Go out there and love on your children. You've been listening to the Black Fatherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Alvin Thomas. I'm a clinical psychologist, researcher, and the director of the TriLab at the University of Wisconsin-Madison's School of Human Ecology. Original music for our series was composed and performed by Micaiah De Silva. Our series producer is Joe Ruby. The podcast is supported by the School of Human Ecology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And you can follow me on Twitter at Dr_AT758. That's Dr_AT758. And on the web at thomaslab.humanecology.wisc.edu. Make sure to subscribe to the Black Fatherhood Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts.